explain why the Oauth connector in Bubble generally isn't going to be very useful to you, and why you need this plugin. So here is a standard setup of Oauth 4.0, and it works fine. So if you put all that in and you do the normal things you do to initialize Oauth, this will let a user log in, and you just copy these exactly, it'll work, and that's great. But what that means is, because you're using Bubble's Oauth user agent flow, what it means is that the credentials, the auth token, is stored on the user who signed in. So, and it's not visible to you. It's a feature of Bubble on the fields on the user will be the auth token, and in the background, Bubble will do the refresh token process. That's great, but what it means is only that user who logged in who did the Oauth sign in to 0, only that user will have access to that token, which is really not terribly useful, because what you want is not just that user to have the access to 0, you want the application to have access to 0. So what the plugin does is it implements the Oauth login, and then because it implements the Oauth login, you can get the access token, plus you can get the refresh token, and we store those in our Bubble app, and then we have a Bubble recursing workflow which manages the refresh process. So because of that, what we have is stored in the Bubble database an access token, and because we have that access token, we're able to use that access token in the API connector. So we'll close that one down. So this example 0 is self-managed tokens. What we can do is now we can pass the access token that we've got in our Bubble app database in order to make the API call. So we can use the API connector, just the vanilla Bubble API connector. We can manage it all ourselves, implement what we want, implement how we want, and use the plugin in order to manage the tokens, to get the tokens, and then use the Bubble app to do the refresh process. So the point is that you basically stay in control of your access to 0, because you're self-managed. You get to do vanilla Bubble API connector, and the only thing you're dependent on is using the plugin to authenticate and get the tokens, and then build around that Bubble processes and pages so that the refresh process works. So in summary, this Oauth works, and Oauth works with 0 as you'd expect, but the problem with Oauth with Bubble is that the token is only available to the user who authenticated with Oauth, and we don't want that. What we want is we want the application to be able to authenticate, and so that the application stores its access to the 0 access token, and the Bubble app manages the refresh process, which is great. And that way, any user of your Bubble app is able to hit the API calls to grab the whatever REST API calls you want to implement in 0 with the API connector.